Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat. That's the way we get paid, and that's the way we keep making the content that you know and love. Ooh, my bell. Tonight's guest. She writes and podcasts over at SouthSideSox and is also part of the all sports scene, the Ass People. She's also a hilarious tweeter, and you can find her there at zombie_Jacki. Jacki Krestel, welcome to the Anjou.
Thank you, Flo. Thanks for having me. You did an excellent job on my name. That was pretty good.
I got it right that time. So I screwed it up last week because when I said it in my head, it sounded like I said Krestel, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. But I don't know if I wasn't sure. I was uncomfortable with what I did.
You know, my maiden name was Johnson, and no one fucked that up. But Krestel kind of rhymes with pretzel. Krestel.
With pretzel, yeah. Once you told me that, I was like, okay, I think I can get this down. Thanks for joining me tonight. We haven't done one of these together. I'm full disclosure, the boys, we've wanted to have you on the 108 podcast. We've had a couple ideas to try to get you in there. Hadn't formulated yet. So I thought, well, once I started this show, I thought you were on the short list of people I wanted to get in here, talk about some White Sox stuff and get going. We think you're hilarious on Twitter, but you got good baseball insights. That's the combo that the 108 goes for. We go for funny, but we're trying to do all the baseball stuff. However, right out of the gate, we got to get to the fact that you're some kind of athlete, okay? One goofy night on Twitter, we're always all out there just talking shit or whatever. I put up a tweet about in Little League. I had a game where I had 5 hits. I was an MVP of my Little League, but I wasn't much of a baseball player. I was just big. Like I was so big. Like I was the height I am now when I was 13. So I had stats. I played basketball, but I put up a tweet and I said 5 hits. I once had 5 hits in a Little League game. That was my career high. Reply if you've ever had 5 hits in a game. And you came right over the top of me, dunked on the beef, and said, not to brag, but my ERA senior year was .086, and you struck out 161 batters in like 25 games. So I need to know, and you also followed up with this. You followed up a cutout that I guessed was from the Southtown, which in fact was, of you at Bremen High School and your statistics you posted here. So I needed to find out what kind of athlete you were. Lay it on me. This sounds like a phenomenal softball career at Bremen. Shoot me straight here.
Okay, so before I delve into the softball stuff, whenever I talk about softball stuff, I have to talk about my dad. So please indulge me for just a little bit while I talk about my dad.
Bring it. I love it.
Okay, so my dad was like a tough guy, guitar playing shortstop. He was a ball player.
Okay.
And then he got married, and he had 3 little girls. And this was the early 80s. He had no idea what to do with a house full of girls. So he fell back on what he knew. And what he knew was baseball and rock and roll. And that is why me and my 2 sisters like rock and roll and baseball. Okay? So
that's awesome. I fucking love it.
And so when I started playing t-ball, softball, and an in-house league, I came home and I told my old man that I wanted to pitch. And he didn't know what to do. The mechanics are completely different than what he was used to as a ball player. Yeah. It's completely different motion, right? So what he did was he went to the Midlothian Public Library and he checked out a book by like an old softball coach, Ernie Parker. He checked out an Ernie Parker book, and it taught how to break down the mechanics and how to teach it to somebody. And in violation of any number of copyright laws, he Xeroxed the shit out of it.
Of course he did. I'm surprised he didn't just take it and never return it. Like that's an old school trick too. Just take it, never pay the fines, and never go to the library again.
Yeah. So that's how I learned to pitch. Was my dad Xeroxing this Ernie Parker book and teaching me how. And he used to, keep a log of how many pitches I would throw in a day.
Wow.
I have pictures of that too. I should have sent them to you.
That is awesome. You should put that up on Twitter at some point so people could see it as a follow up to this.
I took a screenshot for it for the show, but I just forgot to send it to you.
That's too bad.
Okay. And the other drill that I tell people is about in our back living room, there was a brick wall that I used to have to throw a rubber softball at from like 3 feet away as hard as I could so that it would come back at my face and I could get reflexes.
Play defense. My goodness.
That's why the moneymaker is still here.
I love the inventiveness of your father. He's just like, well, we'll just figure this out. We're just going to figure out a way to do this. It's kind of funny because Treasy and I both played basketball, and my dad was not an athlete at all. My mom taught us how to play. I kid you not. I couldn't beat my mom one-on-one until I was probably like in 7th grade. So once I started dwarfing her in size, then I could finally beat her. But she would kick my ass as a younger kid in basketball. So I had the kind of the inverse of what you had learning sports there.
Nice. I want to, Billy Wires. Yes, I am a Bremen alumnus.
Oh,
whatever.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes, I am. Bremen Braves.
Let's get to this drink real quick. Nathan Sheba, he says, a man that goes to the library, respect. So thank you, Nathan. Appreciate the drink.
We love a library story. Anyway. So anyway, all of that stuff that my dad did for me, it served me well because I got pretty good. At it.
Looks like it. Sounds like it. So did you continue on after high school playing additionally or no?
I did. I went to a couple different recruitment events. I was actually just talking to another White Sox Twitter. Notre Dame invited me to like an invitational, but they didn't end up recruiting me, so whatever.
Okay.
But it did end up paying for a little bit of school when I went to St. Xavier. So.
Oh, wonderful. That's awesome. Okay, cool.
But I'm going to throw my stats down at you because you asked for them, and I looked them up. Okay?
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, and I know them because my dad made me a scrapbook with them in it. Okay. Okay, senior stats. I was 12-8 as a pitcher, 0.86 ERA, 161 Ks. And then on the offensive side, I hit 296 and with a 500 on base percentage.
Oh, shit.
That's 16 runs scored, all conference, all area, all state honorable mention, whatever that means. So that's about where I capped out.
That's outstanding. Wow, that's incredibly impressive. Not a lot of run support is what it sounds like to me. 12-8 with a 0.86 ERA. Like you got King Felix Cy Young right there is what you got. That's what you ended up with.
Much like the White Sox, I played in a terrible division, and I was both aided and held back by that.
Father Zoe says, "Be the Sox 5th starter right now, please." Yes, it's absolutely. There's a slight opening there. Yeah, and that's that. Mike Press says, "Queen Felix over here." I totally agree with that. Let's get to this drink from Brian S. Brian, thank you very much. Softball, schmoffball. Talk about real life skill, like killing it at Paperboy. I watched that draft. I watched a Nintendo game draft with you on it, Jackie. I didn't know half the games you guys were picking, but the draft was awesome because the banter was so good. Like, you guys were terrific. It was so funny.
Which, by the way, Spo, Baloney, Brian, I know that you're all in your shame closets playing Paperboy. Don't try to pretend like you're not.
Absolutely. Jackie, just one last thing on your high school pitch. What's the pitch mix? I don't know. Oh, okay. I know in softball you got a fastball, but there's other pitches that aren't necessarily the same pitches that you throw in baseball, right? I mean, it's just some different stuff, right?
I got a 2 and a 4 seam fastball.
Okay.
The one pitch that I have that we don't have in baseball, I had a rise ball.
Okay.
Those are fun to throw to baseball players. They don't know what to do with them. But my go-to number 2 pitch was a knuckle curve. My curveball, like my changeup was a knuckle curve.
Okay.
Kind of fell off the table, blown away.
Goodness. So what you're saying is, now how in shape is the arm? Could you strike out half a Sox Twitter right now? Or do you need a little run up time to get it going? You know, my
arm would Thanos would kind of disintegrate if I tried to do that. But I could in my heyday I was throwing at maybe 65.
Okay.
So I bet I could get up to 50. I mean, I'm old and out of shape, but I bet I could do it.
Yeah, you get a little movement on it. That's enough to strike out mostly all of us old men. So I love it. Absolutely. And Mailman Jack says, I like a rice ball from Freddy's Pizza in Cicero. Not the same thing, Mailman Jack. I don't think the same thing. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not the same thing there.
No, you snap it from underneath so that the ball crosses the plate, but then jumps up.
That sounds
up and out of the zone.
Extremely tough to hit, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things I wanted to bring you on here to talk about, recent... I'm reminiscent. I don't want to call it a blog. You guys write articles. I write blogs. I can barely write. So when I have a cut out from Excel and everything, that's a blog. But you wrote an article recently about some lessons that you learned from the White Sox, the 2022 season. And one particular point really stuck with me, and I chuckled. I even messaged you about it afterwards. And I'm bringing it up on the screen for the YouTube viewers. you wrote, lesson 1, there's just no way that anyone should be walking around on this earth with imposter syndrome while Rick Hahn is the general manager of a professional baseball team. And you write, seriously, shoot your shot, apply for that job, pitch that book idea to a publisher. Why should you feel hindered by feelings of inadequacy when Rick Hahn literally held a press conference to announce a new 3-year contract for Luis Garcia, who turned around and had a 42 OPS plus season? That's ridiculous. Tell me about Rick Hahn. Tell me about how you learned the disappointment you learned from Rick Hahn in 2022, or even before then.
You know what? Maybe Joe Kelly read my article because he did pitch a book idea to that publisher. Good for you, man. Good for you, buddy. What can you say about Rick Hahn that hasn't already been said ad nauseum to your buddy who's sitting next to you in section 108? You know, he's been not great. He's been not great. So I try to kind of break this down. Like, first we'll talk about what he has done long term, not just 2022. Yep. So like, I'm not going to sit here honestly and tell you that he's the worst GM that has ever existed, because he's not. He's not.
He's pretty rough, though. He's pretty rough. I would put him in the bottom quartile of GMs who currently GMing a teim right now.
The key word there, Beef, is currently. When he was here in 2013, he got off to a pretty good start. I can count the good things that he's done on one hand, but they are still there. Yeah. He picked up Jose Abreu in the international draft. He acquired. He traded Chris Sale. He got Yohan Moncada. He got Michael Kopech. He traded Jose Quintana. He got Eloy and Dylan Cease, and even that douchebag Adam Eaton. When he acquired and then dealt him for we got positive more value in that. So
he flipped. I think it was Hector Santiago for him, and then he came here was a monster, and then he traded them off and got Giolito and all those guys. So it's like a huge victory for him, top to bottom in that trade.
Right, but that all happened prior to 2017, right? So
yes,
since then it's been crickets. Since then. You might be able to make an argument about sending Dane Dunning to Texas and getting Lance Lynn.
Yeah, that's a good trade. I agree.
The jury is still out on that because, Dunning is kind of on his way up and Lance is in his twilight years. But I will at least allow for the speculation on that one.
Yeah, you got Lynn, effective years from Lynn when you needed effective years from Lynn, right? You couldn't afford to wait on Dane Dunning. The Rangers can. So, yeah, right. You're right. They may reap the benefits as well.
Okay, so we might come back to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, but those are the good things, and I'm not here to make you relive all of the bad things because that's just mean, and I'm not a mean person. I'm really not. So I'm not going to make you cry. It would just be painful. But I'm
a recovering crybaby too, so please don't.
I was going to say just say the name Jeff Samardzija to a White Sox fan and see how they react to it. Or better yet, say the name Dallas Keuchel and see what they say. Or, unless you're really looking to be sent out of camp for 7 days while you get clean again, you should probably not mention James Shields.
Yes.
That was rough. But the bottom line is since 2017 on, he's done a pretty terrible job of improving this team.
Basically, yeah.
By any means, by the trade market, by free agency acquisitions, from just basic drafting and roster construction. None of it has done anything to build pieces around the core that we spent a couple years building. That was supposed to be our contention window, our championship window, and you can't build shit around it because instead of having a seat at the table, you're just sitting by yourself because no one likes your dumb ass.
I like that you mentioned the demarcation line of 2017. And that's important for a couple reasons. You mentioned one, which was the drafts. So part of the whole tanking idea, one is you offload talent and you get back talent for it, which he did absolutely just fine. A lot of the trades seem to work out. You have a core of people. But the other part of it is you tank for a better draft position. And they've gotten almost nothing out of the tank drafts. Andrew Vaughn is the last vestige of that, where you could really hit a home run there. They chose Garrett Crochet with one of those high picks, and he's shoehorned into being a reliever at this point. And also with the 2017 demarcation line, they didn't take enough chances with guys who were like borderline roster guys and try to plug them in and see. Like they did a few. They did AJ Reed. I thought Daniel Palka was going to work for a minute, and it had one good year, but then he, but they didn't.
Section 108 loves Daniel Palka.
We still do, but he never became a guy during the window, and that was like their opportunity to try a bunch of things. And we ended up with these low rent, like what was Charlie Tilson gonna become if he was great? Like you didn't shoot hard enough on those chances that you had in that spot. So I love that you picked that demarcation line of 17.
And actually, since 2020, he has been drafting like almost nothing but pitchers, right?
Yeah.
And what has that gotten us besides what you mentioned? Maybe 50 innings of Garrett Crochet in a relief. That's that's the other thing. He's just really, he and the people that he has surrounded himself with in that front office are really bad at evaluating talent. Yes. And I mean, I can trade Chris Sale and get a good return for it.
Right.
I can trade Jose Quintrana and get a good return on my investment.
Yep.
But what Rick Hahn is not good at is finding those, evaluating that talent in a way where you can buy low and like get it into something.
Yeah, you're right with the trades. The trades are like effectively like auctions, right? If everyone knows you're trading Chris Sale, you're going to get a good price because you're going to get enough offers from people. If everyone knows you're trading Jose Quintana, you're getting a good price. You may not get maximum value, but you're going to get something good. You're not going to look like a moron after this.
Right. So I wrote down the big free agent signing since 2017, and I just want to have a little exercise of being depressed with everyone in the comments. Okay.
Everyone ready?
So, 2018, Wellington Castillo. Okay. 2019, James McCann and John Jay.
Oh, James McCann was good for like a second. We thought, we got nope, it wasn't.
2020, Dallas Keuchel and Yasmani Grandal, which I'm still hopeful for Yasmani Grandal. And then again in 2021, Liam Hendricks, raise a glass, Liam and Christy Hendricks.
Absolutely, but Liam's been terrific, so he has panned out. Yeah.
So no, he signed Liam Hendricks. He signed Carlos Rodon to that 1 year, $3 million deal.
Yep.
And then he brought back Adam Eaton for $8 million on 1 year.
And it was right away. He did it. I mean, that was like the second he could sign someone, he's in there. And it's like, really? Like this? And I remember tweeting out like, why are they front run? And people coming at me, this is going to look great later on. This is such a good deal. It's like, no, it is not.
No, it is not.
Let's hit a couple drinks before we get back to this. Matt Zawaski, thank you, sir. He says 100% you would strike out Ken W.O. So I agree with that. And then next up on drinks is Mailman Jack, and he says, big cheers for Jackie. I hope she's having a banana rum Dr. Pepper concoction. Is that what that is?
I am having that, Mailman Jack. A little bit for the nerves,
Don't be nervous. You're just talking to Uncle Beef.
Right.
No reason to be nervous. And 40 of our best friends who are watching in the comments. Right now. Not too many people there. But you're right about this Han stuff here. Like I feel like there was a time when we were all hopeful for Rick Hahn. When he first came on board, it was like, man, we got one of the smart GMs. Everyone wanted this guy. And then little by little, over the pendulum, like more and more people, like his trust eroded from us. More and more people fell off the Hahn bandwagon. And right now, I think we're at the point where we got like James Fox, hashtag White Sox, and a couple other lunatics that are still kind of Hahn bots. And I love those guys. I love James. And I love Reggie as well. But they're the remaining Hahn bots. There's not much left. It's like a lot of the picture you're painting here, Jackie, is just reminding me of like, man, I thought Jeff Keppinger was going to be a good signing, and then it wasn't. It's bringing back all these fucking memories for me.
I remember saying like, that you're like thirsty for the White Sox to do something when you're like, oh boy, Jeff Keppinger.
He played for the Rays. That means he's going to be good.
He's got to be good, right? And I agree with you. Like he had a steep fall off after 2017, and we talked about this prior to the show. But for me, that was a big reason why 2022 was such a huge disappointment, because in 2017, when he did the Quintana trade and we brought in some pieces around our core, we were going to rebuild. I bought in like a hopeful idiot.
Me too.
I bought in. I'm like, okay, all right, let's go. We have to be terrible for a few years, but it's going to pay off and we're going to do it. And since that time, it's just been a slow, steady decline. And every time you think it can't get worse, it does. So it's been really tough on these streets.
You're right. And you're right. It did like we had when they first came in, the excitement, and then you had those down years. Then you had 15 where you're like, oh, they spent some money. They got David Robertson and they got Melky and all. And that didn't work. And it's like, man, this guy stinks. And then when he chose to do the rebuild, we're like, oh, different course. We're buying. We all did. A lot of us bought back in after we were like, not sure about the guy. And we weathered all that bullshit. You're absolutely right. Like, we sat through all that crap. The thing that's most upsetting when you get out the other side, to me, it looks like a mid-2000s Kenny Williams situation where it's like, we have a decent roster here. There's going to be years where they're good and they pop up and they got a shot. And there's going to be years where they're not good, like last year, and they're a 500 team. They're not kind of really in contention. But what really gets me is how smug Rick Hahn is about all of it, man. He's smug. And then when some shit goes wrong, he slides back out of the way like Mr. Coach Klein. He avoids all the confrontations. It's bizarre.
So I see in the comments a lot of people defending Rick Hahn, like, he's just a scapegoat. Hey, come on, let's lay off Rick Hahn.
Right.
And I'm gonna bestow some wisdom that a very dear colleague shared with me. So in my profession, I had acquired a bunch of files from someone that had retired, and they were awful files. Like, no one knew what they were doing. And I was telling this colleague, man, these files are awful. It's going to take me forever to fix them. He's like, Jackie, you know what? That's fair. But, give yourself about 6 months. But after 6 months, those are your shitty files.
That's right.
You haven't done anything to make them better or correct any, we have had holes at second base and right field since the iPhone 5 came out. And
well, I told someone in confidence this. I said, you could say all you and you're right. There are some actually they're bagging on Hahn here. Bruhan Luke says Steve-O named his podcast after Rick Hahn. Yes, he did. And Tina says Steve-O's misguided. That's also true. Love Steve-O. That's a good man. But Joey P is like Hahn really just a scapegoat. But one of the things that always comes to mind to me, Jackie, can you remember, see if you can remember over the decade that he's been a GM, can you remember him hiring in anyone as either an assistant GM or somewhere along the front office pecking order below him that another team came in and absolutely had to have this person and promoted them? No, zero in a decade, right? That's how you know he's not doing a good job. Forget all the Jerry won't let him spend or Jerry won't let him do this. He will let him hire in, though, someone to be on his staff. And he has picked absolutely nobody that I could think of that's become a hot commodity, that's a smart person that goes out there and is like, oh, okay, they're really killing it. We wish they would have stayed with the White Sox. I have none of those off frame of reference. It's possible it's happened, but I don't remember any.
No, I don't remember any as well. So, and you said like, oh, Jerry won't spend the money. We had the highest payroll in team history. You know what it got us? 81 wins and 81 losses.
Right, exactly. And, money not well spent.
and maybe Hahn is a bit of a scapegoat, but and you can like, oh well, the players were injured. Okay, that's fair. That happened. That's real. Or maybe he was kind of hindered by Tony La Russa being the manager, which is maybe not the manager that he wanted to have.
Sure.
And that's a fair assessment too.
Yep.
At first, but again, those are his shitty files now because you stayed.
That's right.
You stayed, and now that's your shitty manager, and those are your shitty IL managements. That's your shitty roster construction.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. At some point, if you don't either put your foot down or figure out a way to work in the situation, you're right. It is yours. You are owning this. You're co-signing this, even if it's not you doing it. I mean, this is a breath of fresh air hearing someone else think the way I think about this because it's absolutely true. Like, there's no like you could say, okay, but he didn't make that decision. there's still culpability up and down the roll for what has happened or what hasn't happened. More importantly, right? They haven't fulfilled the obligations they claim that they would do. They haven't hit the expectations yet. I mean, what do you think about Han going forward? Do you think there's any chance for him to improve upon 10 years of poor record? Do you think he stays with the organization? What do you think is kind of the next step?
Okay, so I don't think he's going to leave the organization. I think he's on a Tony La Russa deal where when he leaves, it will be his choice. I don't think he's going to get fired. And the reason, Jerry is 86 years old. And, it's pretty much been reported that the team's not going to stay in the family. It's going to be sold. And so I kind of feel like everyone in that front office has senioritis. Like they just don't give a shit. Right. Cancel Sox Fest. Who gives a shit? No one gives,
They're quiet quitting. That's what it seems like. I mean,
goddamn millennials.
Kenny Williams, 60-year-old millennial. That's like.
I was going to say whether he can improve or not. Maybe I've seen him do well before. Like I said at the beginning, Joey P, I don't think he's the worst GM that's ever existed. I'm sure there are much, much worse. But I just couldn't tell you any off the top of my head.
I wonder if this year is kind of a little bit of a realization for him. I feel like he has a huge ego from what I've observed so far. However, this year feels like
lawyer.
I know. Yes. I feel like this year, though, some of what they're doing is realizing that they don't know what they're doing, and they're bringing in a lot of outside people, particularly on the coaching staff. But they brought in Sam Mondry Cohen as well to join the front office, who was with the Nationals for a decade or whatever. So it does feel like they're bringing in some fresh blood, and maybe he is finally understanding, like, look, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need some input from outside. I've exhausted my personal resources. And I would assume it's tough. If you've been insular in the same organization for all that time, you only know how to do things how they do them, right? And if your organization happens to be lagging way behind everyone else, you'd think you'd need to get some new ideas in here.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in some analytic guys, right? That was encouraging.
Right.
Whether or not they actually listen to them is another thing, but that's cool. That's a step in the right direction. Maybe he is realizing that, he can't keep doing the same things and expect different outcomes. But there is a cynical meatball fan that lives in the corners of my heart that tells me that he's just, like when you're at work and you just want to do the bare minimum so it looks like you're working when you're not really.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my cynical meatball heart wants to say, like, fuck this dude, man. He's just buying time.
Look, maybe everyone will just have a career year. Maybe everyone will just line up and have a career year like Rick Hahn would like them to. I mean, that's the doobie this year for me.
And those are the quotes that he's been given this offseason.
Yeah.
Like, well, last year was so bad. It can't be that bad this year, can it?
They'll bounce back.
It can.
Of course it can. It could be worse, actually. Nathan Sheba, thank you. Teflon Han. Yeah, that's Teflon Han. No, Jack, you brought it up earlier, though. It could be worse because you had a 4-win Jose Abreu on this roster last year. You had Johnny Cueto pitch out of his fucking mind when he showed up in May, right, and started like the amount of innings he accumulated. He came in a Sunday game when Kopech had to come out and threw 5 innings, right, out of the bullpen. Like, you're not going to get that out of anybody. You can't count on getting these performances just out of whatever is like. For these guys to bounce back, they have to cover that up first to get back to 81 and 81. Then they've got to be even better than that. I mean, that's kind of like what we're not. People aren't conceptualizing, looking at the individual players, saying, "Oh, this guy will have a better year than last year." Yeah, he's got to cover up 7 wins from those 2 guys as part of that duty. We've been down on this team enough. I think it's time we're going to float a little optimism back in here. And I want to set this up a little bit. And I asked you if it was okay if we use our age as part of the reason here. I said I called this Optimism, the White Sox for 40-somethings. And the reason I'm bringing it up in this perspective is I realize as I've aged that enjoying baseball is less about, I want my team to win. We've got the Bernsteinism of, what are you doing? What steps are they taking to win the next championship? That's good. I want my team to be doing that. But there's also the individual aesthetic of going to watch a game, cheering on your team, favorite player, etc. And the example that I would bring up for this is Johnny Cueto. And I'm put Johnny Cueto up on the screen. He's riding a horse. Yes, I've said some disparaging thing about horses in the past. Don't worry about it. But my thought on Johnny Cueto is like, it's not that he played well. That's helpful. But he also had 80 grade vibes. And he was an aesthetically pleasing player to watch on the field. Like, he was pitching in a way that was different, not the way people get batters out in the 2020s. He was pitching like a pitcher in the 1990s would pitch, kind of working all over the place, understanding the deficiencies of the current hitter and attacking them and getting them to be uncomfortable at the plate and do things that they didn't want to necessarily do. So it got me kind of thinking, like, what things are we optimistic about that aren't just, bounce back season? More like, these are things we want to watch and view. So, Jacki, I want to throw it to you. Just get a couple things from you that you're interested, optimistic about with this upcoming 2023 White Sox season.
First of all, I would be remiss if the moment went past me and I didn't say I love Johnny Cueto.
We all do. I wish he'd come back. Like, in the offseason, people were like, man, they're not going to come back. And then when you saw what he signed for with the Marlins, you're like, fuck, they should have brought him back. Like, I thought he was going to get more money than that. I thought he was going to like get paid this offseason for his nice performance in 2022.
Wasn't that fun? I miss him. Okay. The season hasn't even started. I miss him. Okay. So when you asked me about optimism, first of all, it's hard to find optimism in this 2023 team, especially after the offseason we've had, and especially since last week. It's been really, really tough to find it.
Not great.
So it took me like a week. So I was like, optimism? Shit. Okay. Anyway.
I may have said, we did a draft about things that don't need to exist anymore, and I said horses don't really need to exist. We don't ride them anymore for transportation. We don't eat them. They're just kind of they're like a pet almost at this point. And so I caught a lot of shit for it, and the comments are lighting me up right now about this again. But I'm sorry, they're not functional anymore.
There's going to be like tons of comments like they are majestic beasts.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know that Rick Hahn said that improvement for this season is going to have to come from outside. Like, there's not going to be any saviors from Project Birmingham, but I am looking at the minor leagues, and here's why. I'm looking at Oscar Colas, and here's the reason why. First of all, a true corner outfielder who is left-handed, who can hit for power. I'm going to need a minute.
You and me both.
I'm going to need a minute. So, I mean, the numbers are one thing. He slashed 314, 371, 524. 524 slugging, by the way. Do you know what the White Sox team slugging percentage was in 2022? I looked it up.
I do not. No.
It was 387.
Not great. Not great at all.
Not great.
That's pretty bad.
The highest slugging percentage on the White Sox last year. Do you know, Beef?
I'll say it was Andrew Vaughn, and I'll say it was Eloy, and it was 500 even.
You got it exactly right.
I have a slash line in my head because it was his second half. I was closely monitoring the second half. So yeah, we got one guy who slugs a little bit on this roster.
Oh man, I wish I could buy a drink for you. But
Cheers.
I'm busy. Someone buy this dude a drink. All right. So, all right. But anyway, after I looked at the numbers, and the numbers are one thing, and I'm looking forward to having a native corner outfielder out there instead of having the corner outfielders groan under the weight of Andrew Vaughn and Gavin Sheets. Yeah. But then I wanted to do a vibe check. What's the vibe check on Oscar Colas? So I DM'd James Fox from Future Sox, and I'm like, hey, what's this dude's deal? Is he fun? And, because James, I love you, but, you're the authority on fun. So.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so he's like, no, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So I went to his Instagram page to try to find some proof of some cool vibes. Didn't find much, but I did find one picture of him with Cespedes, and they're both with open Hawaiian shirts. There it is.
There they are. We got them. Now that's vibing right there. Now it looks like they got a little card game going on. Get on with that. Like got the solo cups, got some cocktails. It's good, man. This sounds like our guy.
There are two kinds of people that wear Hawaiian shirts, and they are big fat party animals and Jimmy Buffett fans. And that's giving big fat party animal vibes to me. So I'm gonna go with that. Like, let's bring some vibes, let's bring some youth, let's bring some fun, let's bring some talent. I'm optimistic about that in 2023.
There's no question. And Oscar Colas has been a friend of mine for me. I placed a bet on him winning AL Rookie of the Year. But there's also just something aesthetically of, I can't wait for a real, like you said, a real corner outfielder who looks like an outfielder out there. Like I'm eagerly awaiting the White Sox outfield defense. Him being a major part of it is like having a normal guy out there who can make plays, who has a strong enough arm to throw. But really, what I'm looking forward to is a super violent swing that ends up in home runs. Like I think as White Sox fans, we've grown to like have teams where if we're losing 4-0, no problem. This team, especially at home, can hit some home runs and get back in the game. And last year was so fucking disappointing because they didn't hit the home runs. They couldn't hit home runs. They were such a bad power hitting team. It's like, I will be so happy to have that restored, at least in a minor bit, with Oscar Colas joining the squad.
I want to point out the comment from Brian S. that in that picture, they look like backup dancers from the Yohan Moncada music video.
I don't know if Yohan can afford to pay those guys that much. Let's catch up on a couple drinks here. Nathan Sheba says, beef ain't just another pretty face. You're damn right. I have a unique look, Nathan. Okay, I'm not handsome, but I got a unique look. All right. And then we got Chuck. Chuck says, beef inspired me to pour a glass of white wine, even though it's only 4:30 Pacific time. Bless you, Chuck. It is white wine time on the East Coast, on the West Coast. I'm sorry. Yeah, the I've just gotten used to doing white wine for the show, as opposed to the red wine that we do on Thursday nights. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I like it. I got a vibe here, you know?
It's fancy beef. It's
not
au jus. It's prime rib.
Jackie, who else you got? Who else you got optimism? Who else or what else you got optimism for the 2023 White Sox?
So, I had one about the pitching staff, but you said you wanted to avoid like big bounce back years. Do you want me to skip that one?
No, go for it. Go for it. I love it.
Okay. So this year, book your bets now. It is the year of Lance Lynn.
I love it.
It's the year of Lance Lynn.
Fucking right.
So if you look at his stats from last year, when he messed up his knee and he came back after surgery, after IL stints in June and July, he was terrible. And I think it's just because he wasn't, he needed to get his strength back and get his vibe back.
Yeah.
He didn't get to do any spring training or things like that. So in June and July, I looked it up. His ERA was 6.54 over 47 innings pitched. That's not great.
No.
That's not great.
No, especially in an environment when run scoring was down. Like, it's even worse.
Oh, God. So bad.
But
then from August on, he was way better. In August, his ERA was 2.45. In September, it was 2.67. In October, I know he only played a few games, but it was 129. So like his numbers are trending up. So if this dude is able to stay healthy, this is going to be the year of Lance Lynn. I'm calling it now.
I love that choice because the team success, I think, is more predicated on the starting pitching success than most teams are. Like the way that they're weighted as far as money they have out there and talent. Like they got a lot of talent in their top 4 starters here. It's like it's very important for them. And you're right about Lance Lynn coming on in the second half. I had a bet with Josh Nelson for a stake about whether he'd get to 108 ERA plus. And when we made the bet, I mean, he had some atrocious ERA plus, and I thought this is the easiest bet I've ever made. And then he's chugging along, like absolutely killing it. And we're getting down to the final weeks. I'm like, fuck, I got some exposure here. And luckily, he finished with 99 ERA plus, and Josh still owes me that stake. But regardless, you saw when he was fresh, when he was healthy, how good he can look. I'm interested to see what Pedro Grifol does as far as his handling of the starting pitchers compared to Tony. Tony pushed the starting pitchers hard, right? And for some of these guys, I'm okay with that, actually. I'm okay with it for Gio. I'm okay with it with Dylan Cease. But for Lynn, he's 36 years old. They got to be a little more measured and careful with him. And if they do, I think they're going to get the appropriate production. So I think Pedro being here is going to help Lance Lynn as well.
How do you think it's going to go with Kopech?
that I'm interested in. I know he still has the knee, so like they're not sure if he's going to be fully ramped up for the start of the season. I mean, he was even after he was injured and came back, he was still a bulldog. He wanted to take the ball, he just wasn't as effective anymore. So I'm kind of curious. Like he's not enough of a pitcher yet where he can float the I'm banged up a little bit and get by. Like he needs to be strong and have all his full shit, or at least he did last year. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. There's no depth. I mean, you bring Davis Martin up, but he looked fine, but there's nothing back there. So we're dependent on these guys. We need them.
Yeah, we do. So much so that we signed AJ Alexi today.
I saw that. I was like, wait, who's that?
Yeah, I had to look him up. I'm like, okay, so what, is he our fifth starter? Or I mean, I don't. Clearly, we don't know what's going to happen with Clevenger, but like,
right.
I would take AJ Alexi. Right. We don't have to go there again.
No, I was gonna say we spent 40 minutes tearing him apart in the 108 podcast the last time. Mostly Treasy, but My Sox Summer and I were allowed to chime in here or there. But yeah, it's one of those things that made me so mad in time and place that I couldn't tweet about it. I was so pissed off. I'm like, I'm just staying away from the app. And then we talked about it, calmed down, but I don't really want to even think about the man anymore. So yeah, let's keep this vibe we got rolling. I know you got more optimism. You want me to hit a comment? What's up?
I do. Joey P is giddy for Colson Montgomery. Me too, buddy. Me too.
Absolutely.
What is he like? Is he like 17 years old now? Can you tell him?
I think he's 20. Years old. He was kind of a later high school draft, but I saw Keith Law's list today. He was the 25th ranked prospect. So that's the highest I've seen him on the top 100 lists. It's impressive. It looks like to me, from what I could tell, is that the last thing he needs is to develop the power. And with a lot of guys, that's like but if he has all the other stuff already, I don't care if he has to move to third base, man. Let's go.
He's got to hit puberty first to get that power.
That's right. He doesn't have grown man strength yet. He's only 20 years old. What are you going to do?
He's a little guy. He's a little guy.
All right. What else has you optimistic? I know you got a couple more there. A couple more things that be optimistic.
I've got two more. One of them is, Benetti and Stone are back for 2023. Yes. Hey, more so Benetti than Stone, but I can still appreciate Steve Stone off of Twitter. He kind of picked up on some. Yes.
We did a segment on the 108 podcast about Steve Stone's Twitter versus. It's like we couldn't come to the conclusion. We are like, he's kind of a red ass, just kind of like a jerk. But it's also the age thing too, not really knowing how to use Twitter. So it's like a combination of both that makes it turn out so terrible. But his work on TV is still good. And yeah, I'm so happy Benetti's back, because Benetti's at the point right now, Jackie, where if he just wanted to do national stuff, he could go get all the money doing national stuff, and he doesn't really have to do White Sox stuff. To me, I don't want to say it's a passion project for him or just like something he really likes doing, but I think part of it is this is something he really likes doing.
Do you remember when you asked me if the White Sox brought anybody in that other organizations were like, wow, I really got to have that guy? Yep. The only guy that meets that description is Jason Benetti.
You're right. Yep.
I love Jason Benetti, and he's too good to stay on the South Side. He's going to go eventually. So I'm just going to enjoy every year that he's with us here.
Yeah, he's I had some people ask me, like, you like Benetti? And it's like, of course I like Benetti. I said, I do think we overrate him a bit. I think he's a young broadcaster at this point. He's going to, what I mean by that, Jackie, is he's going to get a lot better. Like, he's only in his 30s. He's going to get better than he is right now. And he's good right now. But the thing he's terrific with, and I think we're going to really miss this when he goes, he's terrific with fan engagement. He does reach out and engage with Sox Twitter. And he's playful with everyone, and the Sox Math thing with the videos, like, that just connects everyone even more. It's like a really good stuff that he's aware of it. It's a community, and he treats it like that. And I don't think we're gonna get that, whoever they bring in as the next person after that, or when Jason, eventually just decides he doesn't want to do White Sox baseball anymore. Maybe he'll always stay with us, and maybe he becomes a top NFL guy and gets all that big money and says, during the summer, this is where I want to be. I want to be at home. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
I want him here for as long as he wants to stay. We love you, Jason.
Absolutely.
Stick around.
100%.
All right. And then my final thing to be optimistic about, I'm going to get, oh, God, my AirPod fell out.
That's okay.
Sorry. I need to get like the Pro AirPods, because these, like this one, I dropped in the oven as I was like bending over to like get something out of the oven. So it's all like anyway. So anyway,
they're indestructible though. They still work, right? I mean, like I heard people dropping them in the hot tub and like all this shit, and it's like, oh, the things still work. It's pretty amazing.
Still work. All right, last thing, just to get a little mushy. I told Beef the thing to be optimistic about is maybe the real championship contention window is the friends we've made along the way. Look at y'all in the comments, being all engaged. You know what? White Sox Twitter is the best for engagement. Look at all the podcasts and blogs and sites that we put out. Look at all the content that we put out for this dumbass team. Imagine if they give us a good team, we will be unstoppable. But actually something that you said, Beef, before on a podcast resonated with me. I don't know if it was a podcast or a blog of yours that I read. But going into 2023, I think it's a good exercise when you go to the ballpark, just try to, instead of looking at the big picture of what it means in the division or what it's going to mean in the offseason, just try to enjoy it one game at a time. We're going to win this game or lose this game. And with your buddies at the ballpark, having a beer and talking about this dumbass team on Twitter. And I mean, that's what it's all about, right? In my Han piece, we had a commenter say, like, don't hate the White Sox. They're just the team. They're the laundry. We are the White Sox. We are the ones that follow them.
That's a great call.
That.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. They're our entertainment product, effectively, right? This is like us going out to a movie or going to a theater production or something. That's the way I've always treated. That's why I don't get really hung up on players or want autographs or anything. They're just my entertainment for me hanging out with people that I like or want to be around or whatever. And you're totally right. Like all the people doing podcasts and blogs and stuff, look at all the support everyone gives each other and kind of across groups. There's a lot of like cross-pollination. Everyone goes on each other's shows and they do this stuff together. And it reminds me of like, I mean, you're like we mentioned our age before. It reminds me of like watching the documentary Hype about how the Seattle music scene. Those people all were, because no one would bother with them. No one would go up to Seattle and pay attention to them. They made their own scene. They did their own shit and everyone was doing their own thing. That's kind of what the White Sox scene is. The national attention is almost zero, except for when Tony does something dumb or they sign someone that's beating up their girlfriend or whatever. That's the only time we get attention. Otherwise, we're just amongst ourselves. And so I think that's why the community has gotten so strong. And, that's great. I mean, I love that the community is that strong.
And credit where credit's due. Props to From the 108 for creating this community around this shitty team.
We hope that our section is a nice, safe space. Mostly everyone plays nice, even if all of you don't necessarily all get along on Twitter. I think when people do come through, everyone seems to play nice. So that's the way we like it. I know at 108 Day, that's how it was too. There's people in that crowd that I could see when we're getting up there. I know that a couple of people they have some beefs or whatever. Everyone was cool. So I appreciate that, Jackie. That's very nice of you to say that.
No problem.
Well, Jackie, I want to thank you for bestowing your White Sox thoughts on Rick Hahn specifically. 2022 disappointments in general and optimism you have for 2023. Remember, on this show, we're not trying to be right. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you want to plug before I let you go tonight?
Yes. So if you want to read my baseball work throughout the season, you can find it at SouthSideSox.com. I love SouthSideSox.com. Our editor has made a really intentional effort that our staff reflects our fan base. So there's a lot of diversity there. He made me an editor, so I don't know what that says. But anyway, so that's where my serious baseball stuff is. If you just want to see me make an ass out of myself, you can get it at the All Sports Scene. I am the resident basketball expert.
How much basketball have you watched? I was going to say. Not much.
I know absolutely nothing about basketball. I know that the ball is orange, and I know that the shoes are squeaky, and someone should do something about that. Someone should look into that.
We need the traction. That's why it's squeaky.
I haven't told the editors over there, but like we might be doing something fun with me for I'm looking at doing maybe a March Madness bracket.
Oh, nice.
That's based on like just nothing. Like, I don't like the way that guy looks.
He's got just as good a chance as anyone.
Roxy's in the comments saying that I learned from her. That's true. Roxy is our actual baseball or basketball expert. She actually writes about basketball.
I was going to say, I actually see her tweeting out there about the Bulls. When I don't pay as much attention to Bulls as I should, but when I do check out a game, I'll see her tweeting some stuff. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. I don't always know what's going on with the team.
They're trying to teach me. They're trying to teach me some lingo, and it's not going very well. But I'm willing to learn.
Just keep at it. Keep grinding.
Yeah,
Jacki,
okay.
Again, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you on again. Actually, maybe the boys will want to have you on the 108 show. We'll see you come on there, and you can make fun of us there.
Gladly. I will do that.
Sounds good. Take care, Jacki. All right. Next week's guest is Matt Zawoski. He's a founding member of Sports Mockery, and he's the host of the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. He's going to come on because I wrote a blog this past weekend about vibes of White Sox players, and he shot down a bunch of the things I wrote. He's the resident vibe expert, so he's going to come on. We're going to talk about the team vibes. We're going to put some people in categories, maybe have some discussion on who has the most elite vibes on the White Sox. So that's going to be a great show. Thanks again to Jacki Krestel. Thanks to all the 108 families up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate all of you smashing the like button, commenting, and, of course, the drink tips. We really appreciate it. Peace out.